Well, welcome and thank you for joining us in episode 28 of Podcast Tips with Rob Greenlee. And tonight we're going to do a deep dive with a terrific guest. I'm going to call her actually a co-host tonight. So she's that good. And we're going to dive into live video as well as video and audio podcasting tonight in the episode. So our guest, and you probably saw this in the metadata and on the artwork, but Melanie Dyann Howe is going to join me, and she's very, very well known on the StreamYard Channels and is a talented and experienced marketing coach. Helps media creators on her own YouTube channel as well as on the StreamYard channel, and is known really for being Mentor Mel, doing her Q&A shows live on the StreamYard channels as well. And I've been a guest on her program as well. So remember to join us here every Thursday night on the StreamYard channels. And that includes YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter X, and at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. So if you're watching this as an audio and video podcast, come in and either subscribe to the podcast in Apple Podcasts or any of the other podcast applications. And it would be great to have you with me here, though, live. So if you have the time to come in and watch the show live, but if you don't, you have the option to consume it as a podcast. So that's the terrific opportunity that podcasting offers. And also stick around, because a couple times during this live show, we're going to do a Q&A, which means that we'll answer your questions as you post them into the chat on your favorite viewing platform here. And so we'll try and do it twice during the show, once towards the end. Melanie will probably have to leave at the top of the hour, so I can take questions after that for a few minutes. But I want to thank everybody for being here. This is a growing community, and I'm excited to have you back with me if you're a returning viewer of the show or listener. And if you're new, welcome to the program. So the StreamYard channel is at youtube.com/StreamYard if you wanted to get this over there. And like I said, I can be found on all of the social platforms myself personally, as well as the StreamYard kind of platform and educational videos. So let me go ahead and bring Melanie up to the stage here. So I'm excited to have her join me. So let's do it.
What's going on, Rob?
Well, it's fantastic. It's great to have you here. I know I've been on your program before, so it seemed only right and fair that I bring you on mine. So
hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. It's super fun. This is going to be great. I almost changed my backlights to green because, I know your branding is all the green stuff and all the things. And I thought about it, but then I thought, I don't know. That's not really green's not my color. So I thought I'd better stick with the typical, background. So yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, it's perfect for me because my last name has green in it.
I feel like it was on purpose. Yeah. I think it's kind of intentional. Everybody that's paying attention on personal branding right now, maybe just, take some tips here because, Greenlee, of course. And, green means money. So, that's the other thing too. So it works out.
Everybody's definitely interested in that these days. So what is, for you, Melanie, what does the purple mean for you? Is there a meaning behind that color for you?
Hey, you know where this all started? So a few years ago, and some people that are here hanging out in the comments with us, I see Tisha's here, the Artist Haven. It's good to see you in the comments for sure. Always great to see some of our regulars commenting, and make sure you guys are engaging with us. We definitely want to hear your thoughts. But it's funny because I started out streaming a few years ago, and I had this little corner in my little downstairs office in my condo. And I bought this little strip lights, these those little LED strip lights that they just plug in. And I taped them to the back of I had this little table behind me, and I taped them to the back of it so that it would, kind of backlight onto the wall. And they were blue and purple. And it just has kind of stuck ever since, to be honest with you. And depending on the paint color on your wall, whatever color you choose, that will definitely sort of kind of play its part. But Lava lamps eventually got introduced to the mix as well later. But yeah, so I honestly, Rob, technically I didn't pick the color like for a specific reason, but I just kind of stuck with pink and purples. But last fun fact is, now that I say that, I did go my high school. Our colors were absolutely purple, and I was the mascot. So I was literally a purple fuzzy bearcat running around the gymnasiums in my high school. So I guess purple, maybe it's subconscious. Maybe it's one of those things. So I don't know. I guess we're going to run with that. We're going to roll with that. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of purple too. I like that. I like all of the color spectrum. And I think we both are probably using these really inexpensive backlights that you can get now. I got mine as like a roll of strip lights that I attach to the back of my bookshelf.
Yep.
And I can have full control of. I can animate it. I can make it do circles. I can do all sorts of stuff. So this is probably appropriate, conversation to talk about if you're doing a video podcast. I kind of worry though that this kind of backlight kind of idea is going to be a fad that burns out at some point. I don't know. Do you ever worry about that?
So I thought about that as well. So in fact, the other day was looking at an old video I made that is years old, and it's before I introduced all of this, flashy stuff. And I was like, oh, I kind of miss the simplicity, like the cleanliness, the bright light, and but at the same time, when you think about it, I think that it comes back to like your personal brand and your personal preference. And if you really think about videos and animations, even the 80s. I mean, the 80s are kind of having this retro comeback. And of course, every theme or every fad is going to change. But if you really think about lighting has always played a very interesting part in video and animations, or like effects, special effects. And so in a way, I think it's probably, to your point, I think that a lot of the fads will change, but I don't know about the backlight. Maybe the colors will change, maybe the way we use it, but honestly, for now, I just try not to worry about that stuff, I guess. But I'm with you. I actually I've thought about that. Like, is this going to change? But I don't feel like it's changing anytime soon. And it's all about personal preference. That's what it comes down to.
So I guess the Mel Maniacs are here.
That's a new one for me. So that's a new one, Davidson's All Natural Gym. That's a new one for me, but I kind of like it. Mel's Maniacs. You got the two M's together. I'm okay with it. Davidson's All Natural Gym. That might actually stick a little bit here. So I like it. It's fun.
You're gonna use it in a future episode.
I might.
The community.
Bring the Mel Maniacs. Let's go.
Right. Totally. And then I also got a comment here. If I'm related to Ralph Greenlee, Sarah Posis. Who knows? It could be a long lost relative.
Yeah, you never know.
I have no idea. I actually was born and raised out on the West Coast, up in the Seattle area. So I don't know where Ralph is, but I do have relatives scattered all over the country. But the name doesn't sound familiar. But you never know about those things.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Might have to do one of those DNA tests to figure that one out.
I've never gotten a DNA test, so yeah. So I'm a little scared of that, actually. I don't know that I want to do that.
You and lots of people, I think, actually, because are you ready for what you may not be ready for? You never know. So
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, well, let's kind of dive in. I know you've got a lot of experience as a digital marketer. You're a very talented video presenter. I have to say, I have to give you compliments to that. I aspire to be as good as you on camera.
Oh, come on. You are great, Rob. Your show is great. I was watching the other night. I was multitasking. I was cooking. I was listening. So no, your show is fantastic. I wouldn't come on a crappy show. I can tell you that right now.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I do the best I can, but it really gets back to kind of as far as kind of how I'm thinking about video and audio and the differences around that, and in the context of podcasting, right? So the industry I'm talking more specifically about the podcast industry, has been increasingly thinking about podcasting in a very kind of one-dimensional way. Now, granted, some people in the podcasting space are open to video, but what we've seen is a significant amount of pushback from the podcast community around video because of YouTube, or a lot of people in the industry don't necessarily like YouTube. But it's like this audio only kind of approach to podcasting has been kind of like the dominant thing. And I've talked about this many times on the show, but the history of podcasting is actually, if you go back to the early days, it was mostly audio, but it had a significant amount of video in it. So this is why I wanted to do this show, is to kind of talk about these issues and talk about where these two types of media converge on each other. And as we were talking earlier about the visual presentation of this, most podcasters don't really have to worry about that. They oftentimes will do their podcast in a closed closet.
Yes, literally.
Quite literally. I mean, you would be surprised how many very popular podcasts, audio podcasts, are actually recorded in a closed closet or in a garage. Like Mark Maron did his podcast in a garage for many years. He even had President Barack Obama as a guest on his podcast in his garage in LA. So that just kind of speaks to the culture differences between this. But bringing this together with like a tool like StreamYard was really an intriguing thing to me. And I hadn't really thought about it before probably the pandemic back in 2019, about trying to up my game with a better video camera, lights. I still had a terrific microphone, so I was very focused on the audio side. But that's always, I mean, even the audio side can be a little tough to get properly dialed in. But it seems like that there's this element of complexity now for a lot of content creators as they kind of navigate this space. And I'm not necessarily taking this approach from the standpoint that I'm saying every podcaster has to do video or every podcaster has to do just audio. I'm just saying that the spectrum of things that you can do is much wider now. And that is really being driven by the audience. The audience is open to YouTube. I mean, look how big YouTube is. Look how big these video platforms are now. I think it's a generational shift too. So as we think about creating content now, Mel, what's your thought on how you have thought about this convergence too? Because I know you had a podcast not that long ago, but then you paused it and you really went all in on video. So what was that experience for you as you kind of are navigating that decision or choice as a creator?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, so I have a few things to share in regards to just my thoughts around the opportunities. That's really the way I want to describe it, because I don't think that anyone has to do anything specifically. I definitely think that podcasting, the audio format of podcasting is, so valuable, and it's still so popular. I mean, I was just at a conference and my two bosses were like, I wonder if there's a podcast about this topic. And I said, I guarantee there is. And I said, give me 5 minutes. And sure enough, I found 2 shows specifically about something that you would not guess would be in a podcast. But my point is that, audio has a value in that when someone is listening to your message, when they are listening to the content, there is something different about the way that they soak that content in. And I think it goes back to distractions, right? So, I mean, if you're watching content, if you're watching a video, you are likely watching it on your phone or on your computer, and you are likely massively multitasking. And when I say multitasking, you are reading text messages, looking at emails, you're just kind of all over the place. And are you really soaking in the content? Now, that doesn't mean that some people aren't going to watch a video, but actually just listen to the video, which is why many of us content creators say your audio is more important than your video quality, because most people will accept, mediocre video quality, but they will likely not accept bad audio. So anyway, I think that there is something about when you listen to something and you hear it in audio format, it just soaks in differently. And it could very well be where you are. Are you on the treadmill? Are you walking? Are you in the shower? One of my favorite places to listen to podcasts is in the shower. Are you in the car on a road trip, taking the kids to school? You're just in this different place where the information is just being soaked in differently. But with video, there's extra, stimulations. There's the lights, people might be distracted by trying to figure out what this thing is behind me, or, oh, those colors are cool. Like, oh, what does the sign say behind there? But they're not listening to what I'm saying. They're distracted by the visuals. So, but at the same time, the visuals are also capturing attention. They're getting somebody to stop the scroll and actually land on your piece of content, whereas your audio may never even be found, So there's definitely pros and cons to the approach that you take. And so again, like I say with everything, if you don't feel comfortable and if you don't feel like you can deliver your message with video being incorporated into this audio format, and because the video, maybe you're self-conscious on video, maybe you don't feel comfortable with the way, your quality is, or what all the little excuses we can create for ourselves. But you're all beautiful the way you are, by the way. But if you're distracted by those fears or those limiting beliefs, then don't incorporate video until you're ready, because what I don't want people to do is think, oh, now I'm supposed to add this extra layer, this extra media format, and it's going to actually lessen your impact because you're not able to deliver the message the way that you normally would if you were sitting in your master closet, which, by the way, is a great studio because all those clothes make great sound barriers. And yes, Rob's right. Lots of people record their podcasts in their clothes closet because of that. So if you're more comfortable in there because you can shut yourself out from the world and record the podcast episode, then by all means do it. However, if you are willing to try it and add this video element to your recording, now there's two ways you can do this. You can do it live or you can just pre-record it. There's two ways. If you can add the video element, you are doing two things. You're killing multiple birds with one stone. I hate that phrase. I always say it though. I need to come up with something else. You're so being violent, right? It's terrible, isn't it? Nobody's killing birds around here. I hope not. But the point is this: you're able to record this wonderful podcast, but you also have a video. So now people who maybe know nothing about your podcast, who like to hang out on YouTube, if that's where you're putting it, have just discovered you. And they're like, oh, I really like this content. Now I'm going to go find that podcast on my podcast app, wherever I listen to them. And that's where I'm going to be. Now they've just discovered you and now they're subscribing to your podcast. Now, somebody who doesn't like podcasts and rather just watch or listen on YouTube can choose to listen to you there. But you're letting the algorithms of YouTube, which is a search engine, help people find you. So you have this benefit of marketing yourself. The other thing when I say marketing is, you also can take clips of this recording and you can put it on your Instagram stories, on your TikTok, on your YouTube shorts. You can basically use it as a promotion. Like you can take a little clip, a little 30-second, 60-second clip of this recording and use the video to create basically like a little promo to your audio podcast, which thus drives more traffic to your podcast. So if you can do it, there's a lot of benefits to it for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Creators Classroom comment here. I personally dislike audio only podcasts. That really cuts to the heart of what the conflict is here, is that some people like audio, some people don't,
and it's a personal preference.
Right. Right. So if you're not doing one of those, you may be missing out on reaching a certain number of potential audience members that want to maybe engage with live or engage with the pre-recorded stuff. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about that distinction too. But I got another comment. I'm always laughing at some of the comments, and I guess the daily sports history comment is, Rob, no hat is messing with my head like it. Yeah, because I usually wear a hat sometimes.
Oh, that's true. You do, don't you?
So I like to mix it up a little bit. Sometimes I like to wear it. So, so it just kind of adds a little more depth to the authenticity, maybe, because hats can come across as concealing or something like that, right?
Like if I were to, they're not over here. Like if I were to wear my sunglasses, does that feel a little like?
And there's some creators that I've seen on YouTube.
Yeah, like Viper. He wears. I've never seen that man without sunglasses, but I used to always start my live shows with sunglasses on. It was the way we started, and then I take them off, and it's like, okay, now we're ready. But it was like when I would start shows with like dancing and music and all the things. But yeah,
it's interesting, and so we've covered the lighting, the presentation, and I think as you think about using a tool like StreamYard to do this kind of production, it's really powerful because you can do it all at once. And I think
Hmm.
that's the real power of it. And that's what I'm doing with. But I do use other tools to record different types of situations. So I have
Hmm.
another podcast that I've been running for many years. It's called Spoken Life, and occasionally I will use another tool to capture, let's say, my panels that I do. Like I did a panel, I moderated a panel at the NAB show, and I used a very specialized tool called Nomano, and it's basically a lavalier-based wireless recording system, and to capture all that stuff on stage and to create just an audio experience. This is mainly just an audio show, is what this is. But the whole thing of creating the kind of media that fits with what your goals and your objectives are, I think, is
Hmm.
the way to think about this. So
Hmm.
this whole choice of doing live or live video, I've also done live audio before, but also live video, and then thinking about using a tool like StreamYard to do an audio recording. So you can use StreamYard to just do an audio
Hmm.
recording. Just use StreamYard as a way to see your guest as you're doing the interview. Now, granted, a lot of tools like Skype and other people have been using these tools for the same purpose,
Yep.
to have that kind of eye to eye contact of sorts, right? So as people talk, there's nonverbal communication that happens as well. So if you're just doing an audio only podcast, a platform like StreamYard can be very helpful, not so much for capturing video, but for being able to see the guest that you have and being able to capture a quality recording from that process, right? So you have that,
Yeah.
and then you have just being able to fully produce your on-demand episode in this platform at all, as though it's live, right? So you're basically doing a live production. It's not unlike what happens at the. I spent a lot of years kind of doing a show at a radio station, and so I had a producer that was running the board that would do my commercial breaks. They would come in and out, all this stuff like that. But there's no reason why you can't produce your podcast in StreamYard with all your lead-in music, all your transitions, and all of
Hmm.
your things. You just built it into your workflow when you produce the show. Because a lot of people use tools to record just the audio, and then they'll go into an editing tool and they'll add all of the lead-ins, and they'll add all of the exits and all this kind of stuff. And any interviews, they'll cut and paste it into the timeline of the waveform. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can use these kind of tools to produce your show. And that's kind of what I just wanted to share that, because I don't think a lot of people realize that. And then the other thing people can do is do that, and then they can play it as though it's a live show too. So
Yeah.
there is that option too. So it is rather complex, your choices here, but it just depends on what you feel comfortable with and how you
Yeah,
want to
I
produce it.
think
Go
like
ahead.
to add to it, I think that like it can be as complex as you want it to be, but it can also be as
It can be
simple as you
simple
need
as you
it to
want.
be.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
that's the thing that I love about StreamYard is that you can do all the things. I mean, like to what Rob was just talking about. I mean, I would highly recommend, to his point, you create a workflow, because just kind of winging it with all these little, elements, if you're wanting to add them,
Oh, yeah.
if you can build a workflow, meaning like, okay, I have intro music, upload that, because you can upload music into StreamYard Studio if you're on the right plan. And so you
Right.
can have your intro music, you can have your outro music, you can have segments that you want to play in the middle. Maybe you have some pre-recorded clips that you did already that you want to play in the middle, like ads or commercials or affiliate things if you're one of those types of fancy podcasts where you're making money with your podcast. But all that stuff can be built in, and you can absolutely use StreamYard and build a workflow inside the studio to do that.
Right.
But you also don't have to. So if you're just starting out, or if you're not ready for all those things, you can still just use StreamYard as your recording tool, whether
Right.
you're doing an interview or not. I mean, honestly, you can just use the studio, record only. The audio quality is fantastic. It is superior to, we won't name any names, but it is absolutely superior to the legacy products that people are still using and have been using to record these interviews for their podcasts. Like I said, the audio quality is fantastic. You can, make it so that it's a local recording, and it's like you're not going to have any issues where if their audio level is different than yours, you can have different audio files. We're getting technical here,
Yeah.
which I know a lot of the viewers that tune into your show are fairly technical, but I just, the reason I like StreamYard so much is because it can cater to a fairly non-technical, simplistic, person who just wants to create content, but it can also cater to a, what I'll say, a technically sophisticated person who is wanting to create these higher complex produced shows. You can use the tool to do many of those things. And that's why I like it. It's very versatile in that aspect for sure.
Yeah, but it does take a little bit of flexibility. I'm sure many folks, and I know you do too, Mel, is you create like a show outline of what you
Sometimes
are trying to accomplish, right, in the show. Sometimes, but sometimes not. I mean, if you're just
a lot
doing
of times,
live,
I'm just winging it, man.
well, if you're doing
I have a general
live,
outline, yes, I have a general outline, of course. But when you do this for so long and you do so much of it, you can really skip a lot of steps for sure. Now, anytime I have a guest, that's very different. When you have a guest on the show, you want to have an outline. You want to create expectations for your guest. You want to make sure that you're both on the same page with what you're going to cover. Sure. Anytime I have a guest, I definitely have an outline. I have those things, but when you've been doing this for so long, some of it's just, it's just like ingrained in you. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm having up on the screen kind of a screenshot of my my outline that I use for every episode. So as you can see, I add a lot of context so I can get things. I can talk about things accurately because I have them right in front of me. So,
Yep.
So that's the purpose, and it keeps me on track with the flow of the show, and it reminds me that I need to do certain things at certain times. I don't follow it 100%,
Right.
and I wanted to mention before you started talking, I wanted to mention too that if you're doing a live Q&A show, like which is what you do, oftentimes, you probably don't need that much of an outline. So, and I agree with that. But if you're trying to make sure you cover certain types of topics, and you want to share details, or you want to be able to share like maybe a visual image of let's say a website or something like that is part of the contextual sharing of what you're doing, that's the power of that kind of stuff, where you can actually share the visuals, but it's also important to tell your audience what you're showing on the screen too. I mean, if you're going to put this out as an audio only thing, but there is a lot of stuff that the audio listener misses in not watching the video. I mean, from the comments on the screen, I mean, I can talk about them, but then the whole show would be about the comments.
Right.
Which is fine, but I'm trying to do both, right? I'm trying to talk about some of the comments that are questions, but I'm also trying to show them on the screen so people have a feeling like they're connected to the show, and we're seeing these too. And so some of them are more relevant to the flow of our conversation, and other ones are not. So it's just one of those things that you try and juggle and balance. I know what's your approach to the comments, Mel, as you see your flow?
So I think that every show you have to understand, like, so show formats absolutely drive much of what you were saying. And what I mean by that is, to your point, a live Q&A may not require as much preparation. Now, I absolutely still recommend, because but if you don't prepare, you have to have a backup plan on every live Q&A. But for live Q&As, I absolutely still like to teach something, because I like to theme my live Q&As, because I have found in my experience, if you show up with a open-ended Q&A, people don't really know what to ask. And so they have 1,000 questions and they're not really sure they're less likely to comment with a question. Whereas if, for example, if we were to say, we've got some questions, and if you want to jump into questions soon, we certainly can. And I actually I am going to be able to stick around with you longer, by the way. I just got a little bit of a note, so I'm good to go. But my point is that if you can give people a theme. So if I were to say, hey, everybody, what questions do you have around microphones for your podcast, or audio techniques or audio editing? You will see that you would probably find more questions coming in. But if you just leave it really open and broad, people don't tend to, I just find that people are less likely to comment. Whereas if I give people a theme or a topic, which I like to teach a little bit first. So I'll give, hey, today we're going to talk about, overcoming fears of showing up on camera, blah, 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 blah. And then I'll say, give me your questions all about cameras, technique, how to, confidence, whatever. And all of a sudden, boom, it's like the questions come in and they're all themed, which is helpful for you as well, because it means your content isn't super random either, which is going to just help you in your post-production and all the things too. But so I do like to have, there is still preparation in a Q&A when it comes to that, as well as reminders you might want to share, calls to action that you might want to do, because quite frankly, nobody should just be showing up for a live Q&A without some sort of objective anyway. But the thing I'll say about approaching the comments is every show you should have some sort of intention. So if you know that this recording you're doing, or this live show you're doing is also going to be used as an audio podcast, well, then you need to know that going into it. Therefore, if you were just to start saying, oh yeah, that's hilarious, Creator Classroom, I love your comment. Well, your audio listeners are like, what the heck is she talking about? So you are going to have to make sure you read the comment out loud, which I like to do anyway, no matter what. If I'm addressing a comment, I like to repeat it a little bit, because even your video viewers may not be watching the video. They are listening. Like the last Thursday, Rob, I was cooking in my kitchen and I was listening to your show, the whole Are You Tuckered Out one. I was listening to that amazing conversation you had, wasn't commenting because I literally was like making chicken and cutting up herbs and cooking. And I literally was like, I can't comment because my hands are dirty with food. But I was listening to the show, but I wasn't watching the show. So I do think that a comments is important. And I agree with what you mentioned earlier about, I like to try to help people be relevant. So if I start seeing a bunch of questions come in that are like totally off topic, I might make a quick reference like, hey, I see some questions about, signing up for StreamYard. Tell you what, just go to StreamYard.com, follow the prompts. You guys should all be good. If you still need help, contact support. And then I'll get right back to the show, because I don't want to ignore those people, but I still want to make sure the show stays on track. And so I do try to pick comments that are relevant. And if I start seeing a bunch of misbehaviors getting all crazy, then I'll say, hey, today we're talking about this. We're not talking about, the politics of the world right now. We're talking about this. So come on, let's keep it focused, everybody. And there's nothing wrong with coaching your audience and how to comment and how to comment appropriately.
Yeah, I've been really happy. I mean, this is the 28th episode that I've done. And I think I've only really had maybe one or two, maybe kind of more negative comments before. So I think it really speaks to the positivity of the StreamYard community, because I do think a lot of the viewers come from the StreamYard user community to watch these live programs. And I think if you're a content creator, you're already kind of inclined to be more upbeat and positive about things, because you're there to improve and you're trying to get better and those kind of things. I think those are important aspects
For sure.
to think about. And and I think as we talk about this stuff, some of the tactics that we use, at least with the live shows, as far as how we speak to our audience and our community, is important too. And I think sometimes it's hard to be fully in the place of where they are. As you're a host, I mean, from the host perspective, you have to put yourself in your audience or your viewers or your community's shoes a little bit, and use terms that are kind of inclusive and not be too much about me. It's more about we to some degree, but also be referential to. And this has been important for podcasting for a long time, is when you talk to your audience, talk to them as they're a singular person, right? As much as you can. But yet when you're doing a live show, you're trying to throttle a little bit of a different line, where you're trying to build a feeling of community, right? So so as you talk to your community, using the terms like join us, share with us, thank you, is ways that we can kind of like walk the line between these two types of mediums, with the audio and then with the live streaming stuff. And I was really thinking about that a lot as I hear a lot of the presentations that experts in the podcasting space share about how to speak to audiences and things like that, and how that maybe differs from live streaming, and not so much video. I think it's more about live streaming, because you're you're really trying to build a community. So I don't know, do you ever think about your language? Yeah, I know that you're very talented in your language, so I'm sure you have creative ways of doing that, right?
I'm not sure what you were getting at there about my
Well, I'm
language,
just
but no,
saying
I
that
know.
you're
No, I
a
know.
very capable verbal communicator. I'll just put it to you that way.
I keep it pretty tame on the StreamYard channel. I try.
I'm not saying that you're going off the
I know.
rails here. I'm just
No,
saying
I
that
know.
you're
I was joking with you.
talented, right?
So I definitely, it's interesting because the whole concept of on a podcast episode, in addressing your audience as a singular person. So what Rob meant by that is when you're talking, think about yourself listening to a podcast. And if they keep saying, all right, everybody, or okay, you guys, or all right, everyone, I want you to hear me, you're like, what? It's just me. I'm in my shower listening to you. Like it makes them feel disconnected.
Earbuds in my ear and I'm
Right.
listening to you while I'm mowing the lawn or something. Right.
It can make the listener feel. It can make it. Listen, it's not that you're being it's not that you're being inauthentic. It's just like they're kind of like, wait a minute, what is this about? So I do think that it's important to think about that, but at the same time, Rob, I'm one of those people that I always say, if you know the rules, then you're breaking them when you break them, because I'm all about just do what you can, do it the way you can, do it the best you can. And so what I don't want people to do, and my biggest thing is why I always say, get out there, even if it's scrappy, because scrappy does not necessarily mean crappy. And it just simply means you got to do what you got to do to get going. And as you get better and as you get more seasoned, then you might be able to hone in on, I need to stop saying everybody and start saying, all right, my friend, if that's what you want to say.
Yeah.
But in general, I think that is it is a bit of a best practice for podcasts. However, here's where I get a little bit not hung up, but like a live recording of a podcast episode. Okay. Mm-hmm. For me, I think you're seeing more and more of this. You and I talked about this when you came on my show a few months ago on StreamYard, where we were talking about there's this growth in video and especially live podcast recordings. And I mean, look at the Pat McAfee show. I mean, that is like a perfect example of it's a live broadcast. It's repurposed into audio. There's multiple people doing this now. And the viewers, meaning the consumers of media, are becoming more accustomed to it. Just like we all started becoming more accustomed to watching the evening news, and there's these interviews with these distinguished people, and that some of them are just sitting on a cell phone talking to the national news. But during the pandemic, everyone was doing that. And all of a sudden, our level of expectation, the threshold was lowered. And I think that you're starting to see that in general everywhere else. So again, don't overthink best practices. But where I still get a little hung up on a live recording of an audio podcast is your live viewers, especially if you are a live video person. So for me, that is my main format of content. I am always live. I love the community aspect. I know first names of some of our people. Oh, Pete George is here. He's an Aussie. He's watching from Australia right now. So it's probably a better time for him watching today. So again, my point is I know these people from just the comments of my lives. Live video is about building the relationship. It's about creating the culture. It's nurturing your community. It's taking care of your people, right? It's very difficult to record an audio podcast, do it live, take care of your people, like that little random thing I just did. You'd almost have to edit that out of the podcast. And so my point is that my objective with my live videos is to get to know everyone, talk to them, hang out with them, build a relationship with them. The flip side, when I say that's hard to do when you're also trying to record an audio, format. But the flip side of that is if I can introduce a little bit of that into my audio podcast, all these people listening while they're in the shower can be like, I want to hang out with her. I want a chance to talk to her live. I'm going to go subscribe to her YouTube channel and I'm going to catch this live recording next time instead of listening to the replay later. So you can kind of introduce little sprinkles of it. Again, it's a delicate dance, and it all goes back to, like I said, you've got to be intentional. You have to know this live recording is also going to be a podcast. Therefore, you may approach it different. And it's just one of those things you just have to be thoughtful about. And you know what? Try a few things, see what sticks, and just go for it. I mean, I just try it and just know that you may be doing a lot of post-production editing if you are like me and your live broadcasts.
Yeah, not to add another potential layer to this is I know folks in the past that have done, like I say, a live production recording of their show where they will
Mhm.
actually book guests. So this is something that I've thought about a lot over the years because I used to do live. So of course I like to think about lots of derivative ways of doing things, but one of them would be to let's say you're wanting to do a multi-person interview show
Mhm.
format, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
You could pre-book your guests, like a series of guests as though it's like a talk radio program, right? That
Yeah.
are random callers, and, car talk. I don't know
Oh,
if
yeah.
many in
NPR.
the audi yeah.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
guys
My
would
mom listened to that all the time when I was growing up.
those guys, Click and Clack, would book all of their call-ins in advance, and they would
Mhm.
select, an hour of the day, and then their booker would schedule them to call in back to back in a pre-recorded version of that show. So it's an interesting. I've thought about that a lot with doing a live show. It would be fun to be able to bring in a video of someone to ask their question or something like that. But you have to almost have this kind of like vetting that you have to do in
Yeah.
advance,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
can't
There's
just
a little bit
open
you have
it
to
up,
build a
right?
workflow into that. There
Yeah.
are, the show, if the viewers were to go to the live tab on our YouTube and scroll way back, there were a couple of content creators that, on the StreamYard channel that used to do this aspect of a come on video and ask your questions. So it was a live
Right.
Q&A show, and they
Okay.
would come
So
on
it's been
video.
done. Right.
But it has been done, but there is absolutely you need a little one, it'd be very difficult to do by yourself. So you almost need a producer or somebody, to your point, vetting these people out, because there were, in the beginning, when they were first doing the show, there were some very interesting, I'll say, people in interesting environments that came on, and it was they maybe didn't really have a real question. They just kind of were like there. And so yes, because it is live and somebody's on, it can be awkward for your audience. And so you do want to think about, a workflow and a vetting out. So it could be add them go into another application first, you vet them out there, then you send them the code, then they can join backstage. And it's just kind of one of those things. Again, complication, it's fun, it's awesome. I always tell people, don't start layering in all these things until you feel ready. Don't feel like that's where you need to
Yeah.
start.
Right.
But I think it's super cool, especially if you have a team approach. You have multiple hosts, then somebody could be vetting those people out backstage, and then they bring them on, and you're just adding, you're differentiating yourself from all the other people that are just doing it the one dimensional way, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, this gets back to what you were saying earlier too. I mean, we're not coming on here trying to overcomplicate your life as a content creator, but I think it just helps to share kind of the spectrum of
Mhm.
ways that these things can be done that maybe you hadn't thought of. And I think
Right.
that's each one of us, and this is how I look at any kind of content creation, and same with you, I'm sure, is that it's like a blank canvas, and we are all artists of sorts with this
Mhm.
blank canvas, and we have various types of brushes and tools to create the masterpiece, right? And that's exactly what this all is. You have a very much of a style to how you do your show and your creative. Your intro countdown is so entertaining. Just that right there. I mean, that's worth watching your show, is your little wavy lines going across and your kind of funky music. And I think it's always, it's that entertaining aspect of it that is really, really powerful. And guys sometimes can pull it off, but you know, I don't know that I I can pull up that same level of creativity myself,
I
but
mean, yeah, it
that's
goes
where the
back to like
talent comes in, right,
it goes back to what's
right.
natural for you, right? I mean, and that's the thing. I have so many people that say to me, they'll get in my DMs, or if they've been in one of my coaching programs in the past, they'll be like, well, I just can't, Mel, I can't, I'm not like you. I'm not going to dance, or I'm not going to have this or that.
Yeah,
That's not my style. And I'm like, that's fine. You should be your style. So like, there is someone for everyone. And so, hey, here's the thing, Rob, the things you might like about the way my energy and the way
yeah,
I start a show out drive people bonkers sometimes. So like there are people that probably like, oh my God, it's that Melanie girl again. I'm done. I'm out. I can't watch. That's
Yeah,
going to happen. And it's going
a
to, you know
style
what?
person. Right.
It is what it is. So, you know, you just got to be you and just got to trust the fact that there are people out there that prefer your style, whatever that might be. They prefer that. So don't be somebody you're not, and don't look at, even though you might be entertained by me or, you know, whatever, the way I stutter, all the things, you don't, that doesn't mean that you need to be a certain way. Just, you might be entertained by something, but you've got to always stay true to yourself. That's 100% the priority, no matter what. If you're a creator, if you're creating content, I don't care what, if it's just audio or not. I mean, you have to be authentic to who you are, because you will not keep up with it. Because I'm telling you what, if you're not yourself, you're telling a lie. And the only way you keep up a lie is to tell more lies and more lies until you get worn out and you're done. You're going to give up and you're going to quit. So stay true to yourself and don't lie.
I think that's a really important point. Yeah, I wanted to play just the beginning of one of your videos. I don't know if you cut out your countdown clock. Do you?
No, I don't do any of the post editing. StreamYard does all that. I don't think they cut any of those out. Nope, they don't.
Okay. So I was.
By the way, that is a song by Streambeats. So that's one of those free audio files you can get from Streambeats.
Yeah. So it's okay. It's not actually playing that countdown clock.
It will. It will. I usually start it after like 15, 20 seconds or so.
Yeah, I think it's probably struggling because I'm using so much bandwidth right now. I just wanted to share, this is your most recent episode that you did.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of shares how you kind of do your workflow, and it's buffering. So
yeah, I like a little warm up. So I like to just kind of have a little warm up. Again, when you're doing a live show, let people kind of get going, get on the show, get in there. But I like the music because it kind of gives people a reason to stick around, you know?
Yeah,
warms them up to what they're going to expect from me.
Yeah, so you kind of, it's totally, you're warming them up, you're bringing them in, you're kind of adding layers of content to the presentation. And it really is kind of like, what's the show going to be about? It feels really funky. Okay, here's the countdown clock. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to add a little seasonal element to it too.
Yeah, I saw that. So then the Puddles duck flies through. Of course, you got to have puddles. So anyway, that's the. I'll pause it and move on, but just to kind of give everybody an example, if you haven't seen her show on StreamYard, it's definitely a good one to go check out. So let's pull it back and resume what we were doing here. Oh, what happened here? There we go. I need to bring you up. And there we go. So that's the other part of this, is you got to be able to navigate the interface too while you're doing the show. I don't have a producer behind me. I'm
able to help you produce. Show. I'm actually able. So like, even though you invited me as a guest when I joined, right. I'm one of our, obviously one of our creators. So I have basically host access. So yeah, it's very difficult for me to just keep my hands off the mouse right now and not grab a hold of the controls a little bit.
That's right, because you're so used to doing that. Right?
I am.
So let's think about kind of what else we want to talk about. I know I wanted to talk a little bit about tools and the things that we use to do this. And I wanted to share a little bit, before we get out of time here, a little bit about the podcast hosting platforms that exist out there that could work with you. So I don't know, why don't you share what you're using as a microphone, what you're using for a camera, and what kind of recording, beyond StreamYard, any kind of an editing tool that you're using, post-production tools, or those kind of things.
Yeah, so I'll just do a quick rundown. So my stack is this. So essentially the microphone I'm using is the Elgato Wave 3 microphone. Elgato is a fantastic brand, especially if you like plug and play. So it's just very easy to use Elgato. It's very easy to, I gotcha. It's very easy to just grab their products, plug them in, and you can use them at a basic level, but then they also have companion software to help you enhance them further. But so that's the microphone I'm using. It is a USB mic, which means you just plug it into your computer and it is going to work.
Right.
I will say that when I got started, I told Rob before the show, I busted out this dinosaur. This thing is, first of all, it is ginormous and it is heavy. This is the Blue Yeti. This is actually an original Blue Yeti. So like before Blue was bought by Logitech. But anyway, you don't really need large equipment anymore. Everything's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's just, great quality, and you don't have to spend a fortune on anything. So this is a great mic. The camera I'm using is the most expensive thing outside of my computer itself of everything I use. And it is, I am using the Sony ZV-E10. I also have a Sony A6100, but that is, going to give you a good quality. You have to have a capture card for it to actually be recognized by your computer as a webcam, blah, 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 blah. And then as far as lighting, I'm actually just using a single Elgato Keylight Air. And then obviously my backlights are actually, this is an outdoor light. So this is a light that you're supposed to use to shine on your house, but it is super bright. So it will do this whole major backlit reflection on the wall, more so than like a strip light, like what you're using, Rob. It's just really, it's just this small little landscape backlight, and that's what's going up there. As far as software, obviously I use StreamYard to do all my live videos and interviews and things. If I am doing a podcast interview, I use StreamYard. I absolutely use StreamYard to do that interview. I record it. I just do a recording only. I don't typically live broadcast my recordings. Now, I have to say this. I have not published a podcast episode in a little over 2 years. That is getting ready to change. I am actually getting ready to relaunch my podcast, and I'm rebranding it. I'm retitling it because the content focus is going to be similar but different. Anybody that watches my broadcasts know you're going to get the same thing. Lots of motivation, inspiration with some tech help and all that stuff. But I actually use Audacity. I know that sounds crazy. So that is a free software, and it's just what I've always used, and I know how to use it, and so I use it, and it's free. So I just like it. Now, so when I'm just recording an episode, that's what I use. But honestly, when I use Audacity, I sometimes think to myself, shouldn't I just be using StreamYard, the recording only, the audio only? But I just find that the way you can add the musical tracks and the layers, I'm going to do my post-production in there anyway, so I just record in there, unless I'm doing an actual interview, like I said. As far as hosting, I'm a Buzzsprout user, so I use Buzzsprout for my podcast hosting. I find it very simple, very easy. It's very affordable, and it just makes the whole process of pushing your podcast out so easy and so simple. I will tell a quick story that I bought this microphone probably in 2014, I think. I honestly think it was 2014 when I was like, I want to create a podcast. And I was a big Amy Porterfield listener. I was a Pat Flynn listener. I was like, I'm going to record a podcast. So I started researching, and everyone was like, you need the Blue Yeti. That's the podcasting mic. And so that's what I went and bought. I just went and bought it. I was like, okay, now I'm going to figure out how to make a podcast. So I had the mic. I was like, okay, I'm ready. How hard can it be? Well, back then it was pretty complicated. You have to understand RSS feeds, and you had to do this, and you had to do things with files. And it's not like that anymore. Now I just record an episode, I upload it to Buzzsprout, I write a description, I write the things, and it just poof, it's like automatically pushes it out to the world. So I find that creating a podcast today is easier than it's ever been when it comes to the technical side. If, like I said, if you want to get fancy and do all the other stuff that Rob was talking about earlier, you certainly can, but you certainly don't have to. So that's essentially how I do it. That's how I get it done.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a opportunity, I think, to use these platforms to get your content out to more people than just if you're using, YouTube, or if you're just using like LinkedIn or these platforms. That's the power of the podcasting side. Now there's two ends of that spectrum though. There's the audio podcasts and there's video podcasts. And this particular show is live, and it's really doing all the elements here. And I can pull up on the screen just to kind of demonstrate this, what I'm actually doing with this show. Let me pull it up here so you can see it. So this is basically a WordPress instance of the show. And let me try and reload this. So it'll load properly. And so as you can see on the screen, this is just a basic WordPress website, but it has all of the episodes of this show kind of posted in here in one big list. And this goes into an RSS feed. So there's an audio RSS feed and a video RSS feed. So there's two versions of the show in Apple Podcasts. So if you go into Apple Podcasts and search for podcast tips with Rob Greenlee, you can find a audio version and a video version. So, and this is what is shown here on the screen is this is the audio version up here, the upper part of the screen, and the lower part is the video version. So you just click that and it will actually play that for you. Or if you're in Apple Podcasts, it'll download it to your mobile device, and you can watch it right on your podcast app. But not all the podcast apps support video. So this is a little bit something that used to be a stronger thing than it is now. So it didn't used to be kind of at the same level that it is now. Apple is kind of, to some degree, depreciated and when I say depreciated, it's not as easy to find video podcasts on the platform as it used to be, where they used to have a throttle tab between audio and video in the interface. So you'd be able to say, okay, well, I'm going to find all the video podcasts, click that, and it will show you all the video podcasts. But they've kind of blended it all together now. But there's only 3 podcast hosting platforms that support video podcasts, and that's Podbean, Libsyn, and Blueberry. And let me pull up on the screen the platform that I'm using to host this show on is Blueberry, and it's here. I'll pull it up here really quick, and everybody can see it. And it costs about $100 a month to host a full video podcast on the platform. So let me pull that up here so you can see. You can get it. You can see here the website, and so it's just at BLUBRRY.com. As you can see here on the screen here, it shows all the distribution platforms too, and they do have a product that enables you to create an audio podcast automatically if you have a YouTube channel. So let's say you're creating a live YouTube show, right? But you want to have that automatically converted into being a audio podcast. They have a tool called Vid to Pod that basically takes that playlist and converts the audio from the playlist into a podcast. So there is a process for getting your video show. So let's say you're only doing video, but you want to get the audio into all the podcasting platforms. There is a way to do that. So and it's fairly inexpensive. It's not a expensive plan to have. So what they don't have, and YouTube doesn't support this yet, is the ability to go from a RSS feed into YouTube. So they don't currently have that capability yet. So that's what's currently missing in the ecosystem. So you can get audio into YouTube now as an RSS feed, but you can't get a video podcast into YouTube, which seems a little odd. Mel, what do you think?
That does seem interesting, considering that YouTube is a visual platform.
Is a video platform.
Yeah.
Even the audio that's submitted through RSS into YouTube Music gets converted into a video file in their platform. So there is, if you thought that YouTube Music was audio, it's really not. It's all those files that are playing in there are actually video files. So it just may not have a visual element. I mean, like a motion visual element to it. Now, granted, there was an announcement YouTube here recently that they would add AI to the process, and they would actually create a visual motion type movie experience around your audio show for you. So,
very interesting. AI is definitely starting to play a part in the just a lot of the automations that are happening already. I mean, AI, people feel like AI is new, but AI has been around forever. I mean, it's been around for so long. It's just showing up differently now, in a way that, feels more magical, I guess, in some ways. But I definitely think that with AI continuing to evolve and just I mean the word, I guess I can't really come up with a better word than evolve. You are going to start to see, I think, more bells and whistles, more things that just get introduced. And I think that that's like very exciting, but it's also very intimidating for people. But you have to try your best to stay fairly, at least have your fingers on things. You don't have to introduce everything or adopt everything or, add every layer of new formats to what you're doing. But you do need to at least stay abreast to it all so that you can at least understand what the options are, because it will be so fast that all of a sudden you will feel like so left behind and so overwhelmed. But at the same time, what's interesting about podcasting is that it's been around for a long time and it's still here. And the
Right.
only thing that's really changed about podcasting is additional layers, like everything you just described. But like, people still love a good audio podcast. So I don't, all this new stuff is great, but it doesn't mean that the general nature of the way people want to consume your information is going to change.
Yes, I wanted to show also the other hosting platform that supports audio and video, and both of these two platforms, and one other that I didn't have up on the screen here is Podbean, which is another one. They support audio and video as well. But Libsyn was the very first podcast hosting platform to ever exist. And just full disclosure, I used to work for Libsyn. I worked for them for about 4.5 years, and but they actually supported video podcasting at the very beginning of all this, back when Apple decided to add the ability of having MP4 files or video files in the platform. And so that is something that's available today still. It does tend to be a little bit more expensive to go down that path, and I'm hoping that the industry will see an opportunity here to try and embrace the video side more than they have from a public promotion standpoint, and offering plans and stuff like that that are much more attractive to people to get involved in video podcasting. But anyway, let's kind of move on from that and get back to having both of us on the screen. And so anyway, let's talk a little bit about the tools for building community here on the show too. And I know that is a big kind of hot button topic right now around how you can take your audience, take your community, especially you build with a live show, and be able to create a loyal community around it that actually has interactivity beyond just what's on the live show. And I know podcasting is trying to work on this too with the Podcast 2.0 initiative, where they're trying to merge comments and contribution from the audience into one platform that can be shared across a large number of actual apps that will be able to see all the comments from all the other listening apps. So it's an opportunity, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, there's platforms like Kajabi, there's premium groups on Facebook, or not premium groups, but groups on Facebook. And then there's premium platforms too. You can set up like Patreon, whatever, that can help you build kind of like a direct relationship type of kind of relationship with a group of people and be able to monetize that a little bit. I know a lot of people want to monetize their work to some degree nowadays. And I think to a lot of people, and I don't know what you think about these tools, if you played around with any of these type of tools yourself, Mel, at all?
I am a Kajabi user, so my website
Sure.
is built on Kajabi.
It
I
is.
love Kajabi for the whole online course platform, and it's a great all-in-one tool for lots of things. So I do love
Mhm.
Kajabi. Now, as far as the membership aspect or the community aspect of it, I have not used that. I absolutely have used Facebook groups to build community. I think that what it always comes down to when it comes to like having a live stream or having content like an audio podcast, I think it is great to be able to give your audience a place to then go and either take the conversation further, hang out with you, whatever that looks like. So for example, this might be a little weird, but if you have just a podcast now and you're not creating videos or you're not creating, live streams, your live videos could be the starting place for you to build your community. So for example, if
Right.
you're doing this audio podcast, start to introduce a concept of, hey, you want to take this conversation further, come hang out with me on YouTube. I'm live every Friday, blah, 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 taking a deeper dive. So let's say your audio podcast is very, topic focused and you have a specific thing you talk about. But then you can take that same concept and do a Q&A or get more real or go more behind the scenes or get more intimate with it in a live broadcast. I love this idea. And this is what I've done this method in the past. Next thing you know, your live video in the comments of your live video become the community for your podcast. So people listen to you on Tuesday. Maybe that's when you drop your episode, but then they tune in on Friday so that they can ask you more questions or, yeah, I really loved what you said about XYZ. Tell me more about that. Or what made you think of that or whatever. And then you're also learning about your audience, which is then going to help you create better content for them in the future. Now, taking it to another layer or another level, you could have this live feed of comments, but then maybe you want to have a more intimate community, say a Facebook group or a paid group, like what Rob was talking about earlier. Then you can invite them into another place. So I always say it's like walking down Main Street in your little downtown, your cute shops everywhere. You're walking down. Your main content is out there in the street. But if somebody wants to take the conversation further with you, you're inviting them into your store and they're coming into your store and they're walking in and now you're talking to them. But if you want to take it even further, maybe VIP, think about VIP-ish, well, then invite them into the back room where they can see, hey, guess what? I have next week's product in the back room. I'll give you first dibs to see it. This is why, by the way, I don't think anyone can buy Blanton's bourbon anywhere because I think that all the liquor stores have these people that show up when the truck shows up and they're the ones that buy it every time. That's why it's never on the shelf because it never makes it to the shelf because there's people in the back room when the truck, it's an example. But my point is that you have your audience, then you have your community, but then you have your like VIP community. And I think that what
Right.
you're describing is these platforms are starting to create more opportunities for us to build these sort of like tighter communities, these paid communities where you can
Right.
monetize
Right.
hanging out with people.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, it's one of those things. It's almost like taking what you're doing to another level
Hmm.
of engagement. And there's no reason why you can't start doing shows inside of those other platforms too,
Right.
and
Yep.
build kind of exclusive bonus content, those kind of things that are more intimate to that particular community, right? And maybe they are much more highly interactive and those people can participate in the show directly with you too. So there's ways of getting deeper in these relationships, and these can all be extensions off of what you do with your podcast. And increasing that, I wanted to ask you this too, Mel, what your thought is, because I'm hearing a lot of people talk about this term podcast is increasingly being used to refer to more than just audio now. It's being referred to pretty much most of the online content out there. People are thinking if they watch something on YouTube and it's not a podcast, but it looks like a podcast, sounds like a podcast, do you think it's a podcast? What's your
Mm.
feedback on that?
It's
But it,
interesting you say that because even I've caught myself saying audio format because I'm trying to really make sure I differentiate a audio podcast from a video
right,
podcast. And it's
right,
interesting because when you think about it, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's like a podcast is starting to in some segments. I don't think it's everywhere. I think that in certain categories of content, nobody's using the word podcast, but then in others, you're absolutely right. I think that podcast is becoming this new term for just content. Like you said, it's and it's
online
funny
content,
because
right?
it's funny because the word podcast came because Apple invented this thing when they had the Apple iPod, right? Isn't that how the word podcast kind of came about? Or was it the other way around? Did they create a podcast or an iPod so you could listen to podcasts? You would know. You've been around since the beginning. You're an OG.
Well, the iPod actually came before podcasting.
That's what I thought. Okay,
yeah.
that's what I thought.
So it was named based on this this concept of broadcast and being able to transfer a media file to an iPod, right? So it's this ability, and it really came out of Napster. If you,
Oh wow,
so some of the folks here may not know what Napster is, but it was a platform that was music sharing in the early days, right? Or what many perceived it at the time was music stealing. So it was one of those things, and that's kind of where the culture of this medium of podcasting came from, was that era of thinking about sharing media files and being able to share them to a portable media player or an MP3 player, that kind of thing, and be able to play them back. That's where this rebellion of sorts started, was that mentality that came out of that era of Napster. Was, well, let's take radio and create a radio show. I can record a radio show and I can make an MP3 file. I just need a way to share it with others, right? So there was an era when I was involved in this medium when there was a platform called BitTorrent, which was basically a true file sharing distribution platform that would basically share the bandwidth to handle the distribution of media file. Actually, Skype, the video platform, the video conferencing platform called Skype, was originally built on the same kind of infrastructure as BitTorrent, which means that it shared bandwidth from different users to deliver media. So it came out of that era, and so it's really kind of evolved into something that's quite different than what it was intended to be, less than commercial medium. Now, I don't know where I'm going with this story, but as far as where we are now, we've all accepted that online content now is kind of has a commercial element to it. But I do think that there may be a little bit of limitation that a lot of people in the industry don't really see around the inherent aspects of podcasting that do limit monetization, because people want it to be free. People want it to be not something that's so commercial. So, that's the tension I felt over the years too. And I do think that there's a section of the creator economy that wants to monetize everything, right? And wants everything to be charged for and all this kind of stuff. And that may not have a long-term place as much as people would like it to be. But we should probably transition here and take some of the questions that have come in. I've been trying to keep up with all of the longer form questions, and I know that lots of folks have been posting comments in here. So we might as well attempt to try and go after some of these before we run out of time. So let's do it here. Looks like Muttnut has a question in here. My high school colors are purple, gold, and blue and white. Mascot is the Maryland blue crab, which all call the crabbers. So I think people are getting ideas for color from a lot of different places in their backgrounds and in their experiences and maybe in their names, kind of like what is the case with myself. So and then it looks like April Roga, right? When it comes to background, you just have to go with your gut and be you. So I think there's an aspect of that as well, April, that comes into play, and what feels right to you. And I do think that there's a lot of examples, I think on YouTube, and Mel, jump in on this if you want to, that people just have a very natural background, or they just have a colored wall or a black wall or something like that, that proves, and some of these programs are very successful programs, that you don't really have to have a fancy background or a lot of colors, do you?
No, I mean, honestly, like I said, I think even honestly, I think there's so much out there now that even if you have a simplistic look, you actually may stand out from the rest because everybody's added all this,
Yeah.
pomp and
All this
circumstance.
fancy stuff, right?
Yeah. So you actually now are going to, whereas all of this made you stand out earlier, now going back to a simplistic look may actually help you stand out, today. So I definitely, I just, for me, I think it all goes back to you've got to create an environment that you feel inspired by and inspired in, and also comfortable to deliver your content. So if you want all these things and it makes you feel like, yeah, I love that look, and it energizes you to create content, then do it. But if you like a clean, simplistic, because that's, your style, then that's what you should go with. I think that you really can't go wrong as long as you feel natural in whatever environment you create.
It's a blank canvas, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
It
can
is.
create whatever. Looks like Jillian writes, happy to join you both today from sunny Los Angeles, ready to hear your best tips regarding video podcasting. So Jillian, thank you for joining us and your comment. And so let's bring up the next one here. It says, Samon Watchman writes, thank you, StreamYard. I have a small church and I take care of all the media. StreamYard makes streaming look amazing and it's so easy. So, well, thank you so much for the comment there. I agree. I think it is a powerful tool for a small church to use to produce their sermons or any kind of lessons that they might want to share with the world. So, and it's a great way to video podcast. Actually, what the largest number of podcasts that are out there are shows that are based on religion.
Yeah.
So, or religious topics type shows. So it's not unusual that this is being used in that way. So thank you for the comment. And then Sarah writes in here, how often do you podcast? Frequency is what I'm asking about. Yeah, that's a difficult question. Mel, I know you do your show like every 2 weeks, right? Typically, right, on the
Well,
StreamYard
my live
platform.
show, yeah. So for StreamYard right now, it's about an every other week show. Back when I was in the thick of content of my own, personally, I was doing weekly shows. I personally like a weekly frequency, and I always like to use this analogy. I can't say that I came up with this one. It was somebody had explained it to me in a way, and it just really made sense. But if you think about watching, like, if you're old enough where before Netflix and all the things came out, like when we used to watch our favorite shows on TV, and it's still this way to this day, but like Friends, for example, used to come on Thursday nights, and you knew what you were doing on Thursday night. You were going to sit down and watch your favorite show or shows. And it was a weekly occurrence. And when people know, they know Thursday night at 8, Thursday night at 8, Thursday night at 8, and it's ingrained in them. So if you can do, I think frequency is important, but also consistency as to when, so the day and time, if your schedule allows you to do it the exact same time every time, people will then just become accustomed to it. In fact, I do think that a lot of my StreamYard viewers that are hanging out with us in the comments know that I'm a Friday show typically, and your show's a Thursday night show, 7:00 Eastern, so it's the same exact thing. So people just kind of they're like, oh, it's 6:45, whether they've clicked get notified or not, they just know, I got to get Rob's show on, so I think that's why the weekly occurrence, because if you go any further, it's sort of like they forget about you. They can, it's no offense, but they can forget about you. And so I do think weekly is great. If you can't keep up with that, then go with something that's no less than once a month. I mean, I think once a month is by far the lowest frequency you'd want to do. But I think the more importantly, it goes back to that consistency. So, but that's definitely what I would say.
Yeah, I think that there are examples out there though of infrequently published podcasts that are successful. So it's one of those. It's just another one of those examples of this is a blank canvas, and you can do what you want. I would recommend myself personally weekly, or probably the sweet spot right now is increasingly becoming twice a week. But that depends on the content. It depends on your schedule. It depends on how comfortable you are with that. It can be, quite a bit of work to put one of these things together appropriately. So it depends on what your time availability is. But I do see in the numbers, at least what I've seen, at least on the podcasting side anyway. I can't speak to, I do know that there's shows on YouTube that are daily or even multiple times a day.
Yeah.
So there's examples of all of the options here. So it really gets back to what your schedule is and what you feel like is the right thing.
It does. And something to add to that. So, especially since you mentioned the daily thing. So, I do think that, it also comes down to your content. If you don't have enough content to deliver, don't deliver content just to deliver content. So, make sure that so if you can only come up to Rob's point, if your schedule only allows you once a month or every so often to create a piece of valuable content, then that's what you should do. Now, if your schedule allows you to create weekly content, daily content that is valuable and fresh, and there's an audience for it, then by all means do it. I mean, think about like when we listen to the radio, we listen to the same songs over and over again. The commentary might be different is from the DJs on this in between, but it's like, it's still valuable to us, right? So make sure that you are able to deliver valuable content. Again, don't just do it because you heard one time on a show that Mel told you should do weekly. Be like, oh, I got to come up with something because I got to do a show this week. I'm just going to create something. Well, maybe you need to skip it if you can't come up with something that's going to be valuable to your audience.
So here's another comment from was it if I can see it
the Samoan
Watchman, right?
Samoan Watchman, yeah.
Samoan Watchman, yeah. So what did audio ever do for you, man?
whatever do to you, man.
Right. So I mean, it's an interesting perspective that comes back to what we were saying earlier about, everybody has their own preference on what they like to experience, and some people are just not audio fans. So yeah, I would say that is very insightful perspective, and I know a lot of industry folks in the podcast industry wouldn't like that comment because they're very audio focused, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's the thing about it here. And then Mark Pitcher writes, why do we keep having this debate over video and audio when you do a video podcast? Say when you do a video podcast, it's also audio people who don't want to watch, don't have to. People that like to watch can't do anything with audio. So I think that's a good point. You were just talking about that yourself with your own experience with this show, right? So you were doing something else and you were just listening to the audio part of this. So there is a takeaway from that, because you are, when you do video, you are doing audio too. So at least I hope, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a good point. And then Grub Mud writes, why don't you guys go vertical on StreamYard?
I mean,
well,
it is. You can go vertical. So yeah. So Grub Mud, maybe check out the latest feature updates, because you can actually create vertical videos now with the StreamYard Studio. You can't toggle between landscape and vertical, but you absolutely can use the studio to create a vertical video.
Yeah, I don't think you can do that this is about as close. Well, I don't think you can do a vertical video just by clicking a tab where it will put you on top of me or something.
No, not right now. Not right now. No, you have to choose the vertical format before you go live, and it would actually be a portrait mode video. Now, if you were watching on YouTube, it would be portrait, but then it would be like blank on the sides.
Blank on the side, right?
Yeah,
Which
so if
is
you're
less
wanting to
optimal, right?
Yeah, so if you're wanting to stream to, Instagram, for example, you would want to use the portrait mode. If you want to stream to TikTok or some of those other, even Facebook, it will actually fill the feed in there, and YouTube Shorts. So it's kind of the new style, if you will. So
I suppose you could go into custom layouts, right? And position us, one on top of the other of sorts.
I mean, you totally can.
Yeah.
I could do it right now. Hold on, because I can produce.
You can produce. Do it to us. We'll see what it looks like.
It's not going to look good.
It's like,
there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you could actually stay, but see the comment below is not
Yeah.
going to be boxed in. It's not mobily optimized. So that's your
Yeah. It's going to
disadvantage
be
when it
right
comes
over
to
the top
that.
of your face. Right.
Yeah. Well, you're only going to see if you're trying to watch that vertical style. Yeah. But
Yeah.
no, the vertical format is great. It's great to use for that for sure.
Yeah.
So hey, Rob, so I've got about 5 minutes
Okay.
before I have to jump off of here. For sure. I did see a couple of more recent comments. I saw one that I thought was great. I'm going to grab it really fast if you don't
Okay.
mind.
Do it.
From Pete, who is he's watching from over in Australia. He said, "Is there a place for audio only now?" So you were talking a little bit about all these different formats, and you were sharing stuff that I didn't even know in regards to like the actual platforms, the audio platforms still accepting video and still presenting video and all this stuff. But when it comes to audio only, I mean, there still are audio only places for podcasts. Is that, I mean,
Actually,
what are the most popular ones?
That's most of the places actually. Like a Spotify is primarily an audio only at this point, unless you go in there and upload your video directly to them.
Right.
And I do think that the industry is probably moving this direction increasingly, where there's going to be more support for audio and video via RSS. But there are like maybe close to 100 apps that are out there that are pretty much just audio only right
Isn't
now.
that crazy? Like, isn't that crazy to think how, like, that it used to be, oh, subscribe here, subscribe there. But now everyone just says, wherever you like to listen to podcasts, that's where I am. Like, that's like the easiest way to say it, because there's so many places that this content's pushed.
Well, it is, because there's like 100, I think the last number I saw was like 122 podcast consumption apps that exist.
Wow. I had no idea it was up to that many.
Well, there's ones that are all over the world now. So
Yeah.
there's podcast consumption apps in India. There's multiple platforms that are just in India, and there's actually podcast hosting companies out of India now, and in many countries. There's a lot in Europe now too. There's a variety of them all over the world now. So it's a very big, kind of marketplace for podcasts out there now. Online media is really kind of taking over. So of where things are going here. And then looks like we're kind of running out of time, but Mel, if you need to drop out, I can just stay on and keep answering these questions as much as I can.
Yeah, I am gonna have to jump, but this was super fun. So this was fantastic. I absolutely love the show that you do, because there's, StreamYard, I think probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, people started to finally realize, and honestly, the app themselves, they started to really invest in the podcasters that were using the platform. I mean, I'd say at least 2 years ago, but we really didn't have a great way for people to learn about podcasting except until your show, quite frankly, came on. So it's been fantastic. And I hope that all the users that are watching, or if you're just now tuning in for the first time, make sure that you catch Rob's show again, because I know I always like it. I always learn stuff from you. Like, I didn't even know I didn't know certain things. And, I'm pretty up to speed on a lot of tech, but, it's just one of those things that it kind of gets me excited to just get back into podcasting again. I do think it's a format where it's less, I love the audio, or the video podcasting, but what I like about the concept of podcasting is you can kind of do it anywhere, like you said, in your closet. You don't even have to put your makeup on or get ready or do your hair or wear a hat or whatever you want to do. You can record a podcast and put yourself out there and get your content out into the world in the simplest way possible, quite frankly. So I still think podcasting is great. I know that just watching your show kind of gets me jazzed up for getting back out there into the podcasting world. So, but it's been an honor to be on your show, Rob. You're one of the OGs out there. You've been around, you've done all the things, radio host, award-winning podcaster, so it's been super fun to be here with you. I definitely appreciate being a guest on the show tonight.
Thank you, Melanie, for taking the time out and joining me. So we look forward to your next episode coming up probably next Friday, right?
Next Friday. That's right. And everyone can tune in on my channel. I'm actually going to be live tomorrow on my own channel, which is at Melanie Dyann on YouTube. So yeah,
I was kind of
getting back into the cadence on my own channel too. So yeah, but
that's awesome.
Yeah, well, enjoy the rest of the show, everybody. And Rob, take care of all these people. They're fantastic. I know you will.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right.
Good night, everybody.
Okay. Good night. All right. Well, let's get and answer a few more questions, or at least share a few more. Live podcast media writes, agree with Rob Greenlee. There are content that needs video, no matter how good it is to deliver audio, because of the actions that are only can be shown in video. And I definitely agree with that. Live podcasts. I believe this is Sonia that's writing this, so I know live podcasts. I'm a judge on her live podcast awards kind of um, ceremony that's coming up here. So if you wanted to submit your podcast to her awards, if you happen to be doing a live podcast or a live show that's a podcast, she's trying to honor that. So thank you for the comment, Sonia here, and then Sarah writes here. Let's see here. Sarah writes, other than YouTube, where are people streaming to? Um, Not a fan of TikTok, but would like to know where others are streaming to. Well, mainly the other ones besides YouTube are Twitch, um, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn are the main ones, and to some degree, Instagram. If you want to manage that kind of what can be a challenging process to get live on Instagram. So I don't do live on Instagram for this program, primarily for the reason that I don't have direct access to the Instagram account for StreamYard to be able to turn the live stream on and off, which you have to do. So there's a little bit of technical limitations that you need to be able to get in to turn on Instagram, but those are those are manageable. I mean, if you own the the account and you can get in there, but one of the things is once you start streaming to Instagram, you have to actually go in to Instagram and be able to click the button to start the stream. So while you're in the middle of doing the show, so it can be a little bit of a challenge on that. So I hope I answered your question, Sarah. So let's go into the next one here. And our second highest views came from Facebook, then Instagram. We also stream to LinkedIn and Instagram. So yeah, Facebook can pick up a lot of replays as well, and live streams, and we do pick up quite a few comments coming in through the Facebook platform as well. The whole Facebook groups thing is a little bit of a challenge that we've kind of lost access to that. But if you have like a business page or something like that, it's basically where you can stream into still. So and on the Instagram side, I think it's a terrific Hello, I'm back. I don't know if I lost everybody, but my computer crashed, and so but this was saved as a recording, so I appreciate you hanging in there if you're still here. Wondering what happened to me, so it's great to be back, and I should probably wrap this up and say good night to everybody. I apologize for the crash here, but it's remarkable that StreamYard was able to hold on to the live stream and keep us up alive. And so I came back and was it's great to be able to close this up with you. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. It was a fantastic conversation with Melanie, and I appreciate you being here. So thank you so much, and looking forward to having you back with me next Thursday on the show here on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. And send me an email if you would like to my email address. Here, I'll put it up on the screen here, and I would love to hear from you. So give me your feedback on what you're doing with your podcast, or if I can be of any help with that. Let me know. And if you're not yet a StreamYard user, I do have a link that you can use to get you a free month or two, as well as a lifetime discount if you wanted to get a StreamYard plan, which has really proven itself tonight to really be um, really can save the day if you have a computer failure of some sort, where it can actually pull up and save your live stream. So anyway, and then I also have a Twitter account as well, and that's at Rob Greenlee. And I do have a website, robgreenlee.com, and I do have my own YouTube page as well, and also on LinkedIn as well. So I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I appreciate you being here with me and hanging tight with me during this little technical glitch that happened. I apologize if I didn't get to your question or your comments. You know, there's so many great people here, and let me um, let me do something here just toward the end here. I think that there's an expectation that I'm going to have a giveaway here. So why don't I just go ahead and do that? And let's pull up. Hopefully, that system is still working here, given the crash. I don't know that it is. Let's see if I can still capture everything. So let's see. It looks like I have a few entries in here. So if I will pull it up on the screen here, and let's see if we can give away a StreamYard duck and let's see here, let's pull it up on the screen here, as well as a mug. So I'm going to pull it up on the stage here, and let's go ahead. It looks like we don't have as many entries as we normally do. I think we're up to 28. So if you just type in hashtag the yard, that'll get you entered into the giveaway. And so let's go ahead and hit that. If you want to quickly get into your chat area and get signed up, that would be great. That's hashtag the yard, just like what you see on the screen there from About the Wallet. Just that, and that will get you into the giveaway here. So let's go ahead and hit the draw button. And okay, here we go. All right. Jay Franz won the giveaway tonight. So definitely, if you want to send me an email, then I can get you your merch out to you right away. Just include in your email your mailing address, and I will forward that on to the StreamYard team, and we'll get those prizes sent out to you, a little Puddles duck and a mug. So thank you everybody for being here. And like I say, Jay, send me an email, rob.greenlee@gmail.com, and we'll get that sent out to you right away. So thanks everybody for being here. And I apologize for not getting to everybody's question. If you want to still pose that question, send it to me in an email on the screen as well. And I'd be happy to help you out with that. But we'll see you back here next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And thank you so much for being here with me tonight. So, and thanks from Mel as well. So thanks. Good night, everybody.